They showed Earth kindness once, and humanity immortalized them in myth. The sky burned red for 3 days straight. Do-hyun watched from his family's field as the crops withered and died under the angry sun. The river that fed their village had dried to a trickle. Children cried from hunger. The old ones spoke of the end of the world. Do-hyun was only 17 summers old, but he understood death when he saw it approaching. Half the village had already fallen sick from drinking bad water. His own sister lay fevered in their home, her skin hot enough to burn his hand when he touched her forehead. The village elder, Hye-jin, said prayers to the gods every morning, but the gods seemed to have abandoned them. On the 4th day, something changed. Do-hyun was digging in the dry earth, searching desperately for any root or plant that might be edible, when he heard his mother scream. He ran back toward the village, his heart pounding with fear. But when he arrived, he saw his mother was not screaming in terror. She was screaming in wonder. The entire village stood in the center clearing, faces turned upward toward the sky. Do-hyun followed their gaze and felt his breath catch in his throat. Something was descending from the heavens. It was not a bird. It was not a cloud. It was a shape that hurt his eyes to look at directly, like trying to stare at the sun. But unlike the sun, this shape seemed to shimmer with all colors at once. Blues and silvers and golds danced across its surface. The object came down slowly, making no sound. As it grew closer, Do-hyun could see it was massive, larger than the temple in the city 3 days' walk from here. It settled on the ground just outside the village with the gentleness of a feather landing on water. The earth did not shake. No dust rose up. It simply was there, as if it had always existed in that spot. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then a section of the object opened like a mouth and light poured out. Not the harsh red light of the angry sun, but a soft white glow that felt cool and welcoming. Shapes moved in that light. Figures began to emerge. They were tall, taller than any person Do-hyun had ever seen. Their skin seemed to contain stars, as if someone had taken the night sky and wrapped it around bones and muscle. They moved with impossible grace, flowing more than walking. There were 5 of them, and they stopped at the edge of the light as if waiting. Hye-jin stepped forward first. She was old and wise, and fear did not control her the way it controlled the younger villagers. She approached the beings with her head held high. When she was close enough to touch them, she stopped and bowed deeply. One of the beings moved forward to meet her. This one had markings on its face that seemed to shift and change like water flowing over stones. When it opened its mouth, sounds came out that Do-hyun did not recognize. But then something miraculous happened. The sounds changed. They became words. Words Do-hyun could understand. "We come in peace," the being said, and its voice was like wind chimes made of crystal. "We have seen your suffering. We wish to help if you will allow us." Hye-jin's voice shook when she spoke. "Are you gods?" The being made a sound that might have been laughter. "No, we are travelers from far away. We are called the Velarim. My name is Taesung. We notice that your world is in trouble. Your son has hurt you. We have medicine and food and water. We can teach you how to survive this." More beings emerged from the light. One approached Do-hyun directly. This one was smaller than the others, with gentler features. When she spoke, her voice was warm like honey. "I am Nari. I help heal the sick. Can you take me to those who suffer?" Do-hyun found himself nodding, unable to speak. He led Nari to his home where his sister lay dying. Nari knelt beside the girl and placed a hand on her forehead. The hand glowed softly, and Do-hyun watched in amazement as the fever seemed to drain away like water being poured from a cup. His sister's breathing eased. Her eyes opened. "What did you do?" Do-hyun whispered. "I helped her body remember how to fight," Nari said simply. "She will be well now. Take me to the others." Over the next 3 days, miracles happened. The beings brought water that never seemed to run out, pouring it into the village well until it overflowed. They gave out small packets of seeds, teaching the farmers how to plant them in ways that would help them grow even in harsh conditions. They set up strange objects that made the air feel cooler, that pulled sickness from the water, that somehow made food last longer without rotting. Taesung worked alongside Do-hyun in the fields, showing him how to read the soil, how to understand what the plants needed. The being's hands glowed faintly as he touched the earth, and wherever he touched, the ground seemed to become richer and darker. "Why are you helping us?" Do-hyun asked one day as they worked. Taesung paused, looking up at the sky. "Because we can. Because you deserve to live. Because looking away when someone suffers is the worst thing any being can do. no matter what rules say otherwise. What rules? Do-hyun asked. Rules that say we should not interfere with worlds like yours. Rules that say you must find your own way without help from those who travel the stars. Taesong's expression became sad, but I could not follow those rules. Not when I saw your world dying. The Velarim stayed for 3 months. In that time, the village transformed. The fields grew green again. The sick became well. Children who had been too weak to stand learned to run and play. Other villages heard about the miracle and sent representatives. The Velarim went to them as well, spreading their help across the land. Nari spent special time with the children, teaching them songs from her world. The melodies were strange and beautiful, filled with notes that human voices could not quite reach but tried anyway. She taught them about stars and distant worlds, speaking in simple words that even the youngest could understand. But one morning, Do-hyun woke to find the Velarim packing their strange tools back into their vessel. He ran to Taesong in panic. You are leaving. Why? Have we done something wrong? Taesong placed a hand on Do-hyun's shoulder. The touch was warm and solid and real. You have done nothing wrong. But we must go. Others of my kind have learned what we did here. They are angry with us for breaking the rules. If we stay, there will be consequences not just for us, but possibly for you. I do not understand, Do-hyun said, tears forming in his eyes. You will one day. Taesong knelt down to look Do-hyun in the eyes. Listen to me carefully. Remember us kindly. Tell your children about us. Grow strong, learn, build, and one day reach for the stars yourself. When you do, you will understand everything. The Velarim gathered together. Hejin and the entire village came to watch them depart. Nari hugged each of the children one last time. Taesong stood at the entrance to the vessel and raised his hand in farewell. Thank you, Hejin called out. We will never forget you. That is all we ask, Taesong said. The vessel closed. It rose into the air as silently as it had descended, becoming smaller and smaller until it was just a point of light in the sky. Then it was gone. Do-hyun stood in the field looking up at the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. He touched the small seed packet Taesong had given him, feeling its weight in his palm. Around him the village began to whisper. The gods had come. The gods had saved them. The gods had left. But Do-hyun remembered Taesong's words. They were not gods. They were something else. Something more important. They were proof that kindness existed among the stars. They showed Earth kindness once, and humanity immortalized them in myth. 500 years had passed since the Velarim walked among humans. Bora sat in the marketplace of a great city, her voice carrying across the crowd as she told the old story. She was a keeper of tales, one of many who traveled from place to place, ensuring that history lived in memory and song. And so the Shining Ones descended from the boat of Ra, Bora said, her hands moving expressively. They came when death walked the land, when the sun god's anger threatened to erase all life. They brought water from the celestial river. They touched the sick and made them whole. For 90 days and 90 nights they taught our ancestors the secrets of survival. Children sat at her feet, eyes wide with wonder. Adults paused in their daily work to listen. Everyone knew the story. Everyone had heard it 1,000 times, but they never tired of hearing it again. A Greek merchant who had stopped to rest called out a question. In my land, we tell a different story. We say that Zeus sent messengers to save mankind when we angered the gods. They were punishment and mercy combined, teaching us to be better. Bora smiled. Perhaps both stories are true. Perhaps the Shining Ones visited many lands, and each people understood them in their own way. Far to the east, in a land of mountains and rivers, a scholar named Junho was writing similar stories on carefully prepared paper. His version spoke of immortals who descended on clouds, bringing gifts of agriculture and medicine. He had collected hundreds of such tales from travelers and traders, and the patterns were impossible to ignore. Every culture had them. Every civilization told stories of tall, luminous beings who came during a time of great suffering. The details varied, but the core remained the same. They came, they helped, they left. Junho set down his brush and stared at the words he had written. He was a man who valued logic and reason. These stories should have been nothing more than myths, the kind of tales people invented to explain natural disasters or lucky circumstances. But the consistency bothered him. Myths usually grew wildly different as they spread. These stories remained stubbornly similar across thousands of miles. In another part of the world, a woman named Su Jin was making the same discovery. She spent her days studying ancient inscriptions carved into stone and pressed into clay tablets. She had found references to the Starwalkers in texts from 7 different kingdoms, all dating to approximately the same era. It is as if they all experienced the same event, she muttered to herself, tracing her fingers over the carved symbols. But that is impossible. These kingdoms did not trade with each other. They barely knew the others existed. Yet here was the evidence written in permanent stone. Beings from the sky. 3 months of miracles. Gifts that saved civilizations. Sujin made a decision. She began to collect every reference she could find, every story, every carved image. She filled scrolls with her research, building a collection that would one day be considered either brilliant or mad. Meanwhile, far beyond Earth's sky, among stars that humans could barely see, a Velarim named Minho sat in an archive that held the memory of 1,000 worlds. He was a historian, devoted to recording and preserving the truth. And he was watching Earth. The Velarim had not returned to Earth since Taesong's exile. The Council had forbidden it, but they could observe from a distance, using instruments that could see and hear across the vast emptiness of space. Minho had made it his life's work to document what happened to the world his ancestor had saved. What he saw filled him with both pride and concern. Humanity had not just survived. They had exploded across their world, building cities and kingdoms, developing art and science and philosophy. The intervention had worked. Taesong's sacrifice had been worth it, but the myths troubled Minho. He watched as humans built temples to the Velarim, as they created elaborate religious systems around the memory of first contact. In some places, the Velarim were worshipped as gods. In others, they were remembered as angels or demons or spirits. They are making us into something we are not, Minho said to his colleague, another historian named Yunji. Yunji studied the data streaming in from Earth. Can you blame them? We came from the sky. We performed what seemed like miracles to them. We saved them from extinction. What else would they think we were? But we were just people, Minho insisted. Travelers who helped because it was the right thing to do. Nothing more. To them, that is exactly what makes us divine, Yunji said softly. Humans are beginning to understand that their gods should be kind and helpful. We gave them that template. Minho spent weeks analyzing the religious and cultural developments on Earth. He saw how the memory of the Velarim had become woven into every aspect of human society. Moral codes were based on lessons allegedly taught by the Starwalkers. Agricultural techniques were considered blessed by the Shining Ones. Medical knowledge was attributed to the Sky Teachers, but he also noticed something that worried him deeply. Many human religions now taught that humans were inherently flawed, that they needed to prove themselves worthy of the divine beings who had once graced their world. They had interpreted the Velarim's help not as a gift freely given, but as a test they barely passed. This is wrong, Minho said, his luminous skin flickering with distress. They think they were unworthy. They think we came because they earned it somehow. But that is not what happened. We came because they were suffering. Because suffering is enough reason. They do not need to be perfect to deserve help. Yunji looked at him thoughtfully. Then tell them, I cannot. The Council forbids any contact with Earth. We are not even supposed to be observing this closely. Then find another way. Minho thought for a long time. Then he began to work on a project in secret. He gathered every record of the intervention, every log entry from Taesong's ship, every medical report from Nari, every agricultural lesson taught by the crew. He compiled it all into a single message, encoded in mathematics and physics that humans would eventually understand when they advanced far enough. The message was simple. You were always worthy. We came because you deserved to survive, not because you earned the right to survive. There is a difference. Remember us not as gods who judged you, but as neighbors who could not look away. Minho placed the message in a probe designed to drift through space, powered by the natural forces of gravity and momentum. He calculated its trajectory carefully. It would take thousands of years, but eventually, when humans developed the technology to travel beyond their world, they would find it. He launched the probe in secret, knowing that if the Council discovered what he had done, he would face the same exile that Taesong had endured. Back on Earth, Bora finished her story for the day. The crowd dispersed, returning to their lives. But a young girl remained, tugging at Bora's sleeve. "Teacher," the girl said, "do you think the Shining Ones will ever come back?" Bora knelt down to the girl's level, smiling gently. "I do not know. But I think if they do, they will be pleased with what we have become. We survived. We built, we grew. That is what they wanted for us. My grandmother says we must pray to them every day or they will be angry." Bora shook her head. "I do not think beings who traveled so far to help us could ever be angry at us for simply living our lives. I think they would want us to be happy, to take care of each other the way they took care of us." The girl thought about this, then nodded and ran off to play. Bora watched her go, then looked up at the afternoon sky. She wondered if the Shining Ones were still out there somewhere, among those distant stars. She wondered if they ever thought about Earth. In his archive, Minho was thinking the exact same thing. He added one final note to his records. "The humans remember us. They have made us part of their identity, their culture, their understanding of right and wrong. Taesong broke every rule to save them, but in doing so, he may have given them something more valuable than survival. He gave them proof that the universe contains beings who care." Minho looked at the star chart showing Earth's location. Such a small world, orbiting an unremarkable star. But because of what happened there, because of one commander's choice to value compassion over rules, that small world now carried something precious forward into its future. The memory of kindness. The understanding that help should be given freely, the knowledge that worthiness is inherent, not earned. "Grow strong," Minho whispered toward the distant planet. "Remember us however you wish. Just remember that you are always enough." They showed Earth kindness once, and humanity immortalized them, and Myth Jiwan sat in her study, surrounded by books that smelled of age and dust. Outside, the Industrial Revolution was transforming her city, filling the air with coal smoke and the sounds of machinery. But here, in this quiet room, she was studying the past. She had spent 5 years comparing mythology from around the world: Greek, Egyptian, Chinese, Mesopotamian, Indian, Norse, Celtic, every culture, every tradition, and she had found something that made her hands shake when she wrote about it. The patterns were too similar to be coincidence, the timing too precise, the descriptions too consistent. In her latest paper, she had written, "It is this researcher's belief that the global myths of divine visitors from approximately 3000 BCE may represent actual historical events. The beings described share too many characteristics across cultures that had no contact with each other. They are consistently described as tall, luminous, arriving from the sky, staying for approximately 3 months, and providing agricultural and medical knowledge. This cannot be explained by simple cultural diffusion or universal archetypes." Her paper was rejected by every academic journal she submitted it to. Her colleagues whispered that she had gone mad. Her university suggested she take a leave of absence to rest her mind. Jiwan refused. She knew she was right. Somewhere in the distant past, something real had happened, something that primitive humans could only describe through the language of gods and miracles. 200 years later, a man named Daehyun stood in an office at NASA's headquarters, looking at similar data through very different tools. He worked for the newly formed Department of Xenoanthropology, a division created to study the theoretical impact of contact with alien civilizations. Most of his colleagues focused on how future contact might occur. Daehyun was obsessed with whether it had already happened. "Look at this," he said to his assistant, pulling up a holographic display. Ancient Sanskrit texts describe the Vimana, flying machines of the gods. Mayan carvings show beings in what appear to be helmets or breathing apparatus. Egyptian hieroglyphs depict elongated humanoid figures with technology that looks nothing like anything else from that era. His assistant, a young woman named Haeun, looked skeptical. "Sir, you know what the academic community thinks of ancient astronaut theories." "I know. But what if they are wrong? What if they are so afraid of looking foolish that they refuse to see evidence right in front of them?" Daehyun pulled up more images. "Every single culture has a flood myth. Every single one. Scientists explain this by saying early civilizations all lived near water, so they all experienced floods. But what if there was one major global crisis and beings from elsewhere came to help? You will ruin your career talking like this, Haeun warned. Then my career will be ruined while pursuing the truth, Daehyun said firmly. In another part of the world, A physicist named Yuna was working on equations that would change everything. She sat in her laboratory surrounded by screens filled with mathematical formulas that would make most people's eyes cross. "It works," she breathed, staring at her results. "The equations actually work." Her colleague Sunho rushed over. "Are you serious?" "I am serious. Faster than light travel is possible. Not easy, not simple, but possible." Yuna's hands trembled as she saved her work. "We could reach the nearest star system in weeks instead of thousands of years. We could actually go out there and see what is waiting." "Do you think we will find anyone?" Sunho asked quietly. Yuna looked at her calculations. "The universe is too big for us to be alone. And if we are not alone, then maybe, somewhere out there, someone already knows we exist." She had no idea how right she was. On the edge of Earth's solar system, far beyond where human telescopes could detect anything unusual, a small vessel waited in the darkness. It had been waiting for a very long time. Inside that vessel, a Velarim named Kyungho sat at his monitoring station, watching humanity's progress. He was the latest in a long line of watchers, Velarim who had volunteered to observe Earth across the millennia. The assignment was technically illegal. The Council had forbidden any contact or observation of Earth, but the Velarim who had participated in the original intervention had created a secret tradition. They took turns, passing the duty from one generation to the next, keeping watch over the world they had saved. Kyungho had been watching for 30 years now. He had seen humanity recover from wars, overcome diseases, and slowly, painfully, begin to reach toward space. He had watched their first satellites, their first space stations, their first tentative steps on their own moon. "They are so close," he whispered to himself. "Just a little further." His instruments detected something new, a probe, a small craft leaving Earth's orbit, equipped with a faster-than-light drive. It was crude, barely functional, but it worked. Humanity had done it. They had broken the light barrier. Kyungho immediately sent a message back to Velarim space. It would take years to arrive, but the message was simple. They are ready. He watched the probe's trajectory and felt his breath catch. By coincidence or fate, the probe was heading toward a region of space near Velarim territory. Kyungho made a decision. He moved his vessel to intercept the probe. When he caught up to it, he attached a small device to its hull. The device contained a message, written in mathematical language that any species capable of building an FTL drive would understand. The message said, "We remember you. Do you remember us?" And included with it were coordinates. Coordinates to where Minho's time capsule was drifting, waiting after thousands of years to be found. Back on Earth, the team monitoring the probe noticed something strange. "The probe has stopped," one technician said, "and there is something attached to it." "What do you mean something is attached to it?" The mission commander, a man named Wanshik, rushed to look at the data. "I mean exactly that. An object has been attached to the hull. It was not there when we launched. It is there now." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Either there was intelligent life out there, or they were experiencing a technical malfunction that coincidentally looked exactly like first contact. "Bring it back," Wanshik ordered. Carefully, very carefully. It took 3 weeks for the probe to return to Earth. During that time, the world held its breath. News leaked, as it always did. Speculation ran wild. Some said it was a hoax. Others said it was the most important moment in human history. When they finally opened the object attached to the probe, they found the message. And they found the coordinates. Daehyun was brought in to help analyze the discovery. When he saw the message, he felt tears streaming down his face. "What is it?" Hyun asked. "What does it say?" "It says they remember us," Daehyun whispered. "Someone out there remembers Earth, and they want us to know they have been waiting." "Who?" Hyun demanded. "Who remembers us?" Daehyun pulled up his research, all the ancient texts and myths he had spent his career studying. Maybe the same beings our ancestors called gods. Maybe the ones who saved us when we were dying. Maybe they have been watching us all this time, waiting for us to grow up enough to understand what really happened. Within days, a mission was organized. The coordinates pointed to a location 3 light-years away. With the new FTL drive, it would take a month to reach it. They assembled a small crew of scientists, diplomats, and linguists. Yuna was chosen to manage the drive systems. Daehyun was chosen to provide historical and anthropological context, and to everyone's surprise, they asked Wanshik to lead the mission. the same commander who had brought the probe home safely. Before they left, Wonshik gave a speech that was broadcast around the world. "We do not know what we will find," he said, "but we know someone wanted us to find it. Someone who knew we would eventually reach the stars. Someone who left us a message saying they remember. So we go to remember them in return. We go to find out what our ancestors tried to tell us through myth and legend. We go to discover if the gods were real, and if they were, to thank them for what they did." The ship launched on a clear autumn day. As it accelerated past the moon, past Mars, and into the dark between stars, Kyung-ho watched from his hidden vessel. He sent one more message home. They found it. "They are coming." Taesong's children are coming home. On Velarim Prime, ancient beings who remembered the intervention began to weep. After 5,000 years, the humans were finally reaching back. They showed Earth kindness once, and humanity immortalized them in myth. The time capsule floated in the darkness of space exactly where the coordinates had indicated. It had been waiting for over 5,000 years, silent and patient for someone to find it. Captain Soman guided her ship closer, her hands steady despite the tension she felt. Behind her, Daehyun and the rest of the crew watched on screens as robotic arms reached out to capture the ancient object. "Got it," the technician announced. "Bringing it inside now." They gathered in the ship's laboratory as the capsule was carefully opened. Inside were data storage devices, built with technology far beyond anything Earth had created even now. But the aliens had been smart. They included instructions, written in the same mathematical language as the first message. It took 3 days to extract and translate the contents. When they finally succeeded, Daehyun was the first to read the message. His face went pale. "What is it?" Soman asked. "What does it say?" Daehyun's voice shook as he read aloud. "To the humans who find this, we are the Velarim. 5,000 of your years ago, we came to your world when it was dying. We broke our laws to save you. We gave you tools and knowledge to survive. Then we left because staying would have made you dependent on us. We wanted you to grow strong on your own. You were always worthy. We came because you deserved to survive, not because you earned it. Remember us not as gods, but as neighbors who could not look away." Silence filled the laboratory. Then someone began to cry. Then someone else. Soon half the crew was weeping openly. "They were real," Soman whispered. "All the myths, all the legends, they were real." The capsule contained more than just a message. It held videos of the intervention, showing Taesong and his crew working among primitive humans. It showed Nari healing the sick, her hands glowing with medical technology. It showed Velarim teaching agriculture, digging wells, distributing food. It also contained star charts showing how to reach Velarim space. "They want us to come," Daehyun said, studying the charts. "They left these coordinates deliberately. They want to meet us." But the discovery created chaos back on Earth. The videos were broadcast worldwide, and humanity fractured in its response. Religious leaders argued about what this meant for their faiths. Scientists debated whether the intervention had been ethical. Politicians worried about the implications of a more advanced civilization knowing about Earth. Admiral Youngchul led the faction that argued against making contact. He stood before the United Earth Council, his voice hard and angry. "They interfered with our development," he said. "They played God with our ancestors. They gave us technology and knowledge we had not earned, robbing us of the right to develop naturally. Then they left, watching us from afar like we were insects in a cage. Now they want us to come to them, so they can pat themselves on the back for saving the poor primitive humans." But Captain Soman spoke in favor of contact. "They saved us from extinction. Without them, none of us would be here. Every person alive today exists because of what they did. And they did it knowing they would be punished for it. That is not playing God. That is sacrifice." The council debated for weeks. Finally, they voted. By a narrow margin, they approved a diplomatic mission to Velarim space. Soman would lead it. A linguist named Juan would accompany her to handle communications. And over Soman's objections, Admiral Youngchul insisted on coming as well, representing those who harbored anger over the intervention. The journey took 2 months. As they approached Velarim space, they received a transmission. It was audio only, and the voice spoke in perfect human language. "Human vessel, this is Velarim traffic control. We have been waiting for you. Welcome. Welcome home." The words made Soman's chest tighten with emotion she had not expected to feel. They were guided to Velarim Prime, the home world of the species that had saved Earth. As their ship entered orbit, they saw a planet of stunning beauty. Blue oceans, green continents, cities that glowed softly even in daylight. And in orbit around the planet, thousands of ships waited. Velarim vessels of all sizes gathered to witness the arrival of humanity. The delegation was transported to the surface, to a landing pad surrounded by crowds of Velarim. Thousands of them had come to see the humans. When Soman stepped out of the transport, she heard something she had not expected. They were singing. Thousands of Velarim voices, singing a song Nari had taught to human children 5,000 years ago. The melody had been passed down through human generations, transformed and altered but still recognizable. And here were the Velarim, singing it back to them. Soman felt tears streaming down her face. Beside her, even young Chul looked shaken. A young Velarim approached them, her skin shimmering with excitement. I am June. I have studied Earth culture my entire life. I know your languages, your history, your music, your art. You have no idea how long we have waited for this moment. You know about us? Juan asked in wonder. We have been watching you for 5,000 years, June said. We have seen your civilizations rise and fall. We have seen your art and music evolve. We have watched you survive wars and diseases and disasters. You have been part of our lives for all this time, even though we could not be part of yours. They were taken to a museum, a massive building dedicated entirely to Earth. Room after room filled with records of human history, collected over millennia. Ancient pottery, medieval manuscripts, Renaissance paintings, modern technology, all carefully preserved and studied. You are the only species we ever intervened with, June explained as they walked through the exhibits. The council made sure of that. After what happened with Earth, the rules became absolute. No interference, no matter the circumstances. But we never forgot you. You became our hope. Proof that intervention could work, that breaking the rules could be right. Then they were taken to meet someone special. The old Velarim was small now. His luminous skin faded to a dim glow. He sat in a chair surrounded by medical equipment that kept his ancient body functioning. But when the humans entered, his eyes brightened. Taesong, Soman whispered. Recognizing him from the videos, the ancient commander tried to stand. But Soman rushed forward, gently pressing him back into his chair. She knelt before him, taking his hand in hers. You saved us, she said simply. Taesong's voice was weak but clear. I only did what anyone should do when they see suffering. You were punished for it, Soman said, having learned the full story from Yoon. I was exiled. My crew was scattered, but I have lived long enough to see you reach the stars. That is more than enough reward. Young Chul stepped forward then, his face hard. Soman tensed, but the admiral surprised her. He knelt beside Taesong as well. I came here angry, Young Chul said quietly. I felt you had robbed us of something. Our right to develop naturally. Our achievements. Our independence. That is a fair anger, Taesong said. I took a choice from your ancestors. I decided for them that survival was more important than natural development. But my children exist because of that choice, Young Chul continued, his voice breaking. My grandchildren exist because of that choice. Every person I have ever loved exists because you could not look away. He bowed his head. I came to confront you. Instead, I find I can only thank you. Taesong reached out with his other hand, placing it on Young Chul's shoulder. Your anger was valid, but I would make the same choice again, every time. Compassion must sometimes override protocol. Over the next weeks, negotiations began. The Velarim offered to share technology, to help Earth join the galactic community, but they did so carefully, respectfully, always asking permission rather than imposing. Juan spent his time with Velarim historians, learning the full truth of what had happened 5,000 years ago. He learned about the Council's punishment, about the secret watchers like Kyung-ho, about Minho's illegal time capsule. You risked everything for us, Juan said to June one evening. Not just Taesong. All of you. The Watchers. The historians. Everyone who kept the secret. You were worth it, June said simply. Every rule we broke, every risk we took. Worth it. On the last day of the visit, Soman stood with Taesong one final time. The old commander was fading. The doctors said he had days left, maybe hours. He had pushed himself to stay alive just long enough to meet the humans. We will remember you, Somin promised him, not as gods, as you asked, but as the people who cared enough to help. That is all I wanted, Taesong whispered. Remember, and when you find others who need help, remember what we showed you. Pass it forward. Taesong closed his eyes and smiled. You became everything we hoped you would be. He died peacefully that night, surrounded by both Velarim and humans. The funeral was attended by thousands. Somin gave a speech, her words broadcast across both worlds. Today we mourn a being who saved our entire species. He broke laws to do it. He sacrificed everything, and he asked for nothing in return except that we remember kindly. So we will remember, and we will honor him the best way we know how, by becoming the kind of people who would make the same choice he did. They showed Earth kindness once, and humanity immortalized them in myth. 50 years had passed since humanity met the Velarim again. Earth had changed in ways that would have seemed impossible before first contact. Human ships now traveled freely among the stars. Trade agreements existed with 17 different species. Earth was a full member of the Galactic Council, its representatives respected and heard. But humans had not forgotten what brought them here. If anything, the memory had grown stronger. In every city on Earth, monuments stood to the Velarim intervention. Schools taught about Taesong and Nari as historical figures, not myths. The date of the first intervention was a global holiday called Remembrance Day, when humans everywhere paused to consider what they owed to alien kindness. Minjae stood before the Galactic Council, presenting his design for the largest monument yet. He was an architect, famous throughout human space for his memorial work. But this project was personal. This was the one he had been preparing for his entire life. The Garden of First Kindness, Minjae said, projecting holographic images for the council to see. It will be built in the exact location where Taesong's ship first landed. The main structure will be visible from orbit, a representation of the Velarim ships descending, surrounded by gardens representing every civilization they touched. The gardens would contain plants from across Earth, all of them descendants of the crops the Velarim had introduced. Water would flow through the memorial, drawn from the wells the Velarim had dug. At the center would stand statues of Taesong, Nari, and the other crew members, their faces captured from the ancient videos. Ambassador Somin, now elderly herself but still serving Earth's interests, stood to support the proposal. This memorial is not just for us. It is for every species in the galaxy, a reminder that rules exist to serve life, not to prevent us from saving it. The council chamber held representatives from hundreds of worlds. Most looked impressed by the design, but there was tension in the air, because this was not just about approving a monument. This was about something much bigger. A Velarim council leader named Sionhua rose to speak. She was elegant and composed, her skin glowing with the controlled light of someone used to diplomatic negotiations. The memorial is beautiful, Sionhua said carefully, but we must address the larger question. Humanity has petitioned to change the fundamental laws that govern our council. They ask us to formalize what they call the Taesong principle, the right to intervene when a species faces extinction. Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was the real debate, the one that had been building for 50 years. The Prime Directive exists for good reasons, Sionhua continued. It prevents us from becoming conquerors disguised as saviors. It protects young civilizations from being crushed under the weight of more advanced cultures. It ensures that each species develops according to its own nature. It also ensures that species die when they could be saved, Somin said quietly. With respect, Council Leader, the Prime Directive would have let humanity go extinct. Would that have been the moral choice? Perhaps not, Sionhua admitted. But where do we draw the line? If we intervene every time a species faces disaster, do we not rob them of the struggle that makes them strong? Do we not create dependence? A human representative named Jongsik stood. He was young, part of the new generation that had grown up knowing about the Velarim. May I offer a perspective? He asked. Sionhua nodded permission. We did not become dependent, Jongsik said. The Velarim gave us tools and then left. They did not stay to run our governments or control our development. They saved us and trusted us to handle the rest. And we did. We built our own civilizations. We made our own mistakes and learned our own lessons. The only thing the intervention changed was that we survived to have the chance. He pulled up data on the chamber's displays. Since contact, we have studied the records. We know of at least 6 species that have gone extinct in the last 5,000 years. Species that faced disasters they could not overcome. Species that could have been saved with minimal intervention, the way we were saved. And they are gone now, forever. Is that really the moral choice? The debate continued for hours. Representatives argued back and forth. Some supported the Tai-Song principle. Others worried about the consequences of changing laws that had stood for millions of years. Then something unprecedented happened. Outside the council station, ships began to arrive. Thousands of them. Human vessels of all sizes, from massive colony ships to tiny personal craft. They carried no weapons. They made no threats. They simply came. What is this? Sionwa demanded, looking at the displays showing the growing fleet. Soman smiled sadly. They are witnesses. Everyone out there is someone whose life exists because of the intervention. They came to show the council what is at stake. They came to put faces to the debate. Every ship broadcast the same message on repeat. We are here because they saved us. We are here because kindness matters. We are here because the Velarim taught us that rules exist to protect life, not prevent it. The council was forced to recess while they considered this unprecedented demonstration. During the break, Jungsik found himself approached by a young Velarim historian named Chaeyoung. I have been studying your species, Chaeyoung said. Do you know what makes you different from most civilizations we encounter? What? Jungsik asked. You immortalized us, Chaeyoung said simply. Not just in myth, though you did that too, but in your culture, your values, your identity. You took the lesson of the intervention and made it core to who you are. Other species forget their benefactors or come to resent them, but you made us into your inspiration. Should we have done something else? Jungsik asked. No, Chaeyoung said, her skin brightening with emotion. You did exactly what Tai-Song hoped for. You remembered kindly. And in remembering, you became a species that values kindness above almost everything else. She pulled up historical data, showing humanitarian missions humans had undertaken in the 50 years since joining the galactic community. You are the first to volunteer when disasters strike other worlds. You share your resources freely. You have never once used your military power to exploit weaker civilizations. Do you know how rare that is? We are just doing what was done for us, Jungsik said. Exactly, Chaeyoung said. That is what makes you extraordinary. When the council reconvened, Sionhua looked tired but resolved. We have made our decision. By a vote of 342 to 157, the council approves the Tai-Song principle. Intervention is now permitted when extinction is imminent, and the civilization would otherwise perish. However, such interventions must be limited in scope and duration. We save lives. We do not build civilizations for them. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions, celebration from some, dismay from others. But the law had changed. After millions of years, the Prime Directive had been modified because of what happened on one small world so long ago. Soman stood one last time. On behalf of humanity, I thank the Council. And I make one more request. We wish to establish the Velarim Protocol. Earth will now watch for young civilizations in crisis, ready to offer the same kindness once shown to us. Are you certain? Sionhua asked. Intervention carries risks. You may face the same punishment Tai-Song faced. Then we will face it, Soman said, because that is what he taught us. Compassion is worth the consequences. Construction of the Garden of First Kindness began immediately. Minjae oversaw every detail personally. The gardens grew lush and beautiful, filled with plants from every continent on Earth. The Uiarn central statues were carved with such care that they seemed ready to step down and walk among visitors. But the most important part of the memorial was something invisible. Buried deep beneath the garden in a sealed chamber, humans placed the complete history of the intervention. Every video, every log entry, every medical report, and alongside it a new edition, records of everything humanity had learned since. All their technology, all their culture, all their art and music and philosophy. A message was included. We are the children of the Velarim intervention. We survived because someone cared enough to break the rules. This archive is our gift back. If you ever need help, if you ever face disaster, if you ever need someone to break the rules for you, come here, find this, and know that we will answer. This is the way of the luminous ones. This is the way of those who care. On the day the garden opened, people came from across the galaxy to see it. Velarim wept openly. touching the statues of their ancient heroes. Humans walked the gardens quietly, many bringing offerings of flowers or art. Other species came to learn to understand what this memorial really represented. Chaeyoung stood with Jungsik, watching the crowds. "Your people really will not let this be forgotten, will you?" "Never," Jungsik said. "We have encoded the story into our genetic memory banks. Every human child will be born knowing this story at a deep, fundamental level. It will be part of us forever." "Why?" Chaeyoung asked. "Why is it so important to you?" "Because it proves something we need to believe," Jungsik said. "That the universe is not cold and uncaring. That strangers can become saviors. That kindness is not weakness but strength. That rules are tools, not masters. And most importantly, that we were worthy of being saved, which means others are worthy too."